family? Okay, 9. So 9 people in the family. Okay, so we got 4, 5, and 9. 2 nines. Okay, and we can just go front row. Yeah, stand up and say so other people hear you. And 8 people. Okay, 5. Also 8. Okay, go ahead. What's second row? 5, 6. Okay, awesome. Perfect. 7 people. Okay. So 4 people. Let's do the late Vanessa and then we'll go back. 6 people. Okay. 5. Okay, let's do ladies. 6 people in the family. Okay. Стільки в тебе є? 11? Окей, хорошо. Okay, wow. That's awesome. 12, okay. 10 people. Let's do the rest of the boys in the back. 4, 7, and the last, Vlad? 8. So, I don't know who's good with math to be here. So, what's the average size of a family, let's say, in this room? 6 or 7 for sure, right? Some families is 11, I think, was the highest, and then we have a couple 4s. So let's say 6 to 7 people in the family. And once we move on, I'll show you why that is important. So today's topic that we're going to be talking about is family life. We're going to talk about marriage. Why does people get married? What does Bible teach us about marriage and the relationship between man and a woman? We're also going to talk about choosing someone to marry. So for ladies, a man, and for boys, a lady. And then at the end, we're going to talk about children. Is my mic still on? Because we're good. Okay, it just sounds better now, so I don't hear the echo. Okay. So but before we have to turn on my clicker. There we go. Okay. So before we get going and into Bible and what does Bible teach about family, I want to share a little bit with you, and my screen's not on, so I'm going to be looking back a little bit. I'm going to share a little bit about modern family, the families in the United States. Right now, I did a little bit of research. So we have about 84 million families in the United States right now. The average size of a family is 3.1 or 3.2, so 3.1 person per family. So when we did our average, we pretty much doubling the normal size family in the United States. But what we have to remember that a lot of single people still count as a family. So when they get old enough, they move out from their parents and they live on their own. So that's why it brings the average down. Also, I don't have that on my screen, but right now, back in the days, maybe you heard that, a family has 2.5 kids, 2.5 kids. Right now, average went down. The average in 2020 is 1.9 kids. So on average, every family has about 1.9 kids in their family. So the averages keep declining, which tells us that right now, in modern times, it's less and less popular to have kids. Another important statistic is that half of all marriages, they end up in divorce right now, and it's going, again, worse and worse. Actually, if you look on Google or just research that a little bit, you'll find some website would say that, hey, divorce is not as bad as it used to be. But what we have to calculate into this is that less people get married. because people choose to live as partners and they get married, so there's less people to divorce. So it looks a little bit better on paper, but in reality, divorce, considering how many people do get married, is getting worse and worse every year, and it's going down if you look at the graph. Another important statistic that I found for myself, that 41% of first marriages end up in divorce. So if you, second marriages, so if people divorce and get married again, 60% of those, they split. And third marriages go 73%, and it goes higher and higher. So some people choose to get married more than 3 or 4 or 5 times, there's even more higher chance they're gonna get divorced. So something that we need to remember, that none of you guys are married yet. If you want your marriage to succeed, the first one has the most chances. So try to hold on to that one the most. Because the more people get married, the more chances they will split apart. Their family will not be successful. And a little bit about kids. Right now in the United States, this is a little bit older graph. About 70% of all kids live with two parents household. But in that number, we have to calculate that only about 46%, I didn't want to put that many numbers on one screen, but 46% grow in or are with the families that are with biological parents. 46% of the kids have their biological parents raise them. 54% of them are raised by single parents, blended families, and same-sex families, and all this kind of stuff. So more than half of the kids are raised in the normal family, as we can say normal family, that most of you are used to the way your family is. So 26% with one parent, so mostly moms are raising their kids, and 5% are adopted kids, or they are raised with partners. So this is the statistics of today's family in the United States. And before we jump into biblical teaching about family, why is this family subject is relevant to us right now, people in church? Or why is marriage important? I don't know if anybody want to maybe tell me, why is getting married important, or why is this topic of family life important right now? So, we're having a lesson on it. Can anybody, maybe one boy and one girl, give me a try? Why even having a lesson on it? What do you think? Anybody? I know none of you married, but you're part of a family, you have mom and dad, so you should have an idea. So, say it again. Okay, all right. Yes, okay. So this is good answers, and both actually true biblical answers. Family, we spend the most time within our families, right? Family parents affect their kids. Husband and wife, they have the most effect on each other. We come to church, we'll say 6 hours a week, right? We come to Sunday morning and maybe have other events that are 6, maybe 8 hours, that's it. But we spend the most time, the most we interact with is our family. It's our siblings or our parents. They have the most effect on us. And they help us either help us grow, or they have potential to make our lives worse. So having a good biblical family life is really important. And that applies to as parents and as husband and a wife, because that's where we spend the most time, of our lives, is at home. So it's really important to do it properly, to build the proper foundation, and to have a strong families. You all heard this news that, I think maybe a couple of weeks ago, there was shooting in the school, right? And this young man went to school, shot a bunch of kids. It's a real sad and scary story, especially for parents. They send their kids to school, and nobody expects this kind of thing to happen. And that one side of our, or more left side of our government says, hey, we have to take the guns away. And they say, hey, this is, gun violence and things like that. So they want to solve this problem, but by taking guns away. And I don't want to get into politics, but that's their best approach to solve this problem that we have. And this is not a first shooting, and there's a lot of shootings happen all the time, this violence and all this, similar situations that we hear on the news or locally. And then the other side, they say, well, we have to secure our schools, right? We have to, lock the doors. Maybe in high schools, we'll put metal detectors so that when kids come to school, they can detect if they have any weapons in them. And that's the other side. That's their approach how to solve this problem. But I was thinking about it and kind of praying about it, and it's real serious. Our kids go to school, and you just never know what can happen to them. What's the best approach to solve this kind of issue as a Christian? And I kind of decided on, for myself, the best solution for this is having strong biblical families. To have biological parents, which has to be a mom and a dad, raise kids and raise them properly the way God designed them to be raised, and all these problems, or majority of them, will go away. When I did some research and I listened to some speakers on the radio, they say the majority of people who do this kind of mass shootings and things like that, they raised in either in single parent families, or they live with their grandma, grandpa, they are foster kids. So they don't have this strong support and foundation. And then they go and do all these horrible things, the scary things. But you don't hear in the news or politicians talk about, hey, we have to make our families strong. We have to go back to the, more original, the way families should be. They don't talk about it because that's not popular. We know that right now, especially in our state, if we're going to talk about more conservative families, biological mom and dads raising the kids, then their whole ideology will not work because they support all these marriages with, same-sex couples and all this identity, changing their gender and all these things. It won't work for modern society. But I think, and that's why nobody wants to talk about it. But that's probably the best solution, to just go back to how God designed families to be. So how did God design families to be? What do you guys think? What did family or institution of family came from? Where did it originated? Who created family? God. When did that happen? It happened pretty much right away. When God, we all know the story. As kids, we heard the story I'll go to the next slide. We all know the story of Adam and Eve. When God created everything, He created a man. And we know that God gave Adam a purpose, and He told him to go and work in the garden. And then we read that God says everything was good. God was pleased. And in chapter 2, in verse 18, it says, it's not good for man to be alone. So did you notice that God said, and everything was good, and everything was good. He created heaven and earth, and He created sea and creatures and trees and everything. And He said it was good. He created a man, and it was good. And then a little bit later, He says, He saw that it's not good for man to be alone, and then He created him a helper. So that's when family was established. God created a family, and He had the purpose for it. First, to help a man. So man, Adam, needed help. He could not fulfill what God designed him to do by himself. And God realized that, so He created a woman to help him, to support him and help him with his duties. Second thing that God asked first people to do is to multiply and populate the earth. He also says in chapter 2, after He created, He said, go multiply and populate the earth. So another calling or purposes of a family is to have children. That's what we called to do as families. And you can hear that a lot, especially in our Slavic communities. 2 kids, if family has 2 kids, it's not multiplying. You just having same amount as, you're just covering the parents. So you have to have at least 3 kids, right? If you want to talk about, multiplying. Probably 4. 4 is doubling, so maybe 4. I don't know. It's up to you guys. This is something for you to think about. And the last thing why God created family, and we find that in the first couple chapters, to help each other grow and improve. So that's why God created a family. And I want to say from personal experience, it's kind of hard to understand this, but if you have a proper relationship between husband and a wife, I will never be able to grow as much as I did as a man and in let's say a church, at home, as a person, without my wife. She had huge influence on me, and she helped me develop, and learn and how to become a better person, how to be better husband, how to be a better man, how to be a better friend. I will not be able to do it. I can tell that from my personal experience without her. So if we want to develop and improve, we need somebody who will be there with us all the time, who will help us to do that. And God, He saw that. He saw that ahead, that we all going to need one another to do that, and He established a family for that purpose. Something that I want to also mention, and it's really important, that marriage has to be biblically. God created Adam and Eve, man and a woman, and marriage is only between man and a woman. We did not do baptism classes when I was your age, but someone would, at that time, would tell me about, someone would try to talk about the marriage has to be only between man and a woman. We would be like, what are you talking about? It's like, duh, hello. We all know the grass is green. Why you have to tell us that it's green? But right now we live at the times when we have to tell this, even at churches, that biblical marriage is between man and a woman. I know you guys go to schools and colleges. Why? So I want to ask you a question before. How come it cannot be, how come biblically it's not okay to have same-sex marriages? Why do we need to understand this, and why do we need to talk about this at church? Because you will eventually, sooner or later, encounter someone, you will talk to someone, and they're going to try, and they're going to call themselves Christian. They're going to try biblically tell you that it's okay to do that. So I want at least 1 or 2 of you try to explain to me why it is not okay. What would you tell someone if they'll tell you, what do you mean, Bible? What does the Bible says the same-sex marriage is not okay? Like, can you give me a Bible verse or a specific place in the Bible? So go ahead. Okay. Okay. You cannot fulfill God's purpose for family. Mm-hmm. So the husband's head is Christ, and okay. Anybody else? Okay, so this is more about kids. Doesn't have to be same-sex couples. Anybody could do that. But I guess you could try to argue that point. Anybody else? Well, I'm just trying to I want all of us to think about it. I encounter people like that. We had long conversations, and they argue. They bring you some biblical stories and verses that they try to argue their points, and they do say that there is no word, like even homosexuality, there is no such a thing in the Greek language. Like when people were writing Bible or Hebrew language, there was no such a thing. So we translated the Bible in such way. But I think the easiest way was to the example or to prove the biblical point is the question that I ask, how many couples do you find in Bible that are same-sex couples? We don't find any. There are no examples for us. If you want to talk about translations and maybe there was no way to explain, how come we do not find in Bible that kind of marriages or couples? So just by taking an example from couples, you only find marriages between man and a woman, and all of them are like that in Bible. So that's probably the most basic and simple way probably to explain this. I know they're going to keep fighting. They will never quit, but at least that's probably one of the ways probably we can tell them that we do not find in Bible marriages like that. So there's no example, so that is not okay. Unfortunately, that's something that we have to encounter almost on an everyday basis, and we see that, our kids see it, so we need to know how to answer if you're going to be in the situation. So let's talk about marriage in the Old Testament. So in Old Testament, God gave Moses laws and how to regulate families. He did allow divorces and polygamous marriages. And we know that Jesus later on explained that he said that in Matthew 19:8, it says, Moses permitted you to divorce your wives because your hearts were hard, but it was not this way from the beginning. So Jesus explained this because Israelites had the hard hearts. They were difficult. So God permitted them to have divorces, and also he permitted them to have, the many kings and many people had more than one wives. When Jesus came, and it says a little bit later in Matthew chapter 5, verse 32, but I tell you that anyone who divorces his wife, except for sexual immorality, makes her the victim of adultery, and anyone who marries a divorced woman commits an adultery. So Jesus, when he came, he wanted to restore marriage or families to original state, how God created it. And we know that God created Adam and Eve, single man and single woman. And Jesus, he pointed that out, that families or marriage has to be between one man and one woman. And divorce is not permitted, according to Jesus, unless for sexual immorality. So in our church, we believe the same, that if there is no sin of sexual immorality, there should not be a divorce. Although there are exceptions sometimes to the rule, and life gets complicated sometimes, but divorce should not be an option. I want to tell you from just experience. I think in life, and psychologists will tell you that if you predetermine something before you start doing something, I'm not going to do it this way or that way, or a lot of times people who don't believe in God, evolutionists, they predetermine not to even have an option that God created the earth. They have all these different explanations. And they will never go, they might never even go that way. Same thing for young people when they meet one another, when they get into a relationship and they choose to go forward and create a family, they need to predetermine. I believe that would help, that divorce is not an option in our future. That's not something we're going to consider. And just let me finish and you can ask. Not something, and by the way, if you have questions, because it's a complicated question or issue of divorce and marriage, especially because we are coming from two different cultures. So ask me, and I'll try to give you my best answer. So because of that, it's better to predetermine and go forward with both agreeing that divorce is not an option for us. Okay, go ahead. Mm-hmm. So according just to this Bible verse in Matthew, when Jesus said, we can say it's not, but then Apostle Paul was writing a little more detailed explanations of all that. So is that question of salvation? Is probably not. But I think it's more of a question, what is the consequences of getting divorced? What I believe personally, so I don't want to speak as a church, I don't have the authority, but personally what I believe that if person is, will get divorced for whatever reason, we'll just say, and church will allow them, if it's not sin of sexual morality, they should not get married, or they should not be allowed to get married, or at least they will be, they will not be able to be a member of the church. But this is just without really knowing the circumstances and things like that. So life is very complicated, and that's my personal opinion. It only has to be for a sin of sexual immorality. That's when, according to Jesus, I guess you are allowed to get divorced and get married again. That's just my understanding of that. So it's all based on interpretation, and I think pastors and leaders of the church, there's some things the Bible clearly explains. So I agree with you on the interpretation of Apostle Paul talks about it, and I did not study to details because I was more concentrating on family and stuff. But I agree, and I think a lot of churches, and not all, but a lot of churches do permit second marriages if there's unfaithfulness in the family. But if there is if sometimes some families do get divorced and for other reasons, it does happen these days, then according to what I believe and Jesus is teaching, I think it's a sin to get married. So that's my understanding, and but like I said, this is just my personal understanding. Okay, so God did not create family to get divorced. Yeah. There you go. So we covered a little bit about marriage and how does Bible look at marriage. Well, to get married, you have to find somebody, right? You don't have automatic somebody to marry. Usually, we all know how it works. Time comes, and with God's help, you find somebody special, 1 in a million, and you build a relationship. And usually, boys ask the ladies for their hand and life, and they say yes, and that's how marriages happen. But the biggest question is, how do you find the right person to get married? I'll say in my personal experience, I was pretty young, and I was still going to college, and I was like, okay, this is not the time when I'll get married. I have lots of school to go to, and I had zero plans. And actually, I told my friends that, it's not going to happen anytime soon. We have to help each other, to stay focused. And probably a little more than that probably happened like in the fall. And less than a year later, in the summer, I met someone special. And my plans changed. God had different plan for me. And I had to change, my plans, my school plans and all those things. But it worked out. And so we never know how these things will happen. For some people, it happens way earlier than they expect. Some people right on time. And some is going to be later than others. But I guess on average, people get married, let's say in our community, about 25, 24, 26, maybe some a little younger, some a little older. Because there's some people, they go to colleges and they finish, they get married in high 20s, let's say. So on average, what, 24? I don't know. Just I don't know exact numbers, but just say, no? Okay, I'll trust you. Okay, 19, I don't know. Oh, that I did not get married that early because I was 21, so I thought it was kind of early. Okay, so 21. And the average life expectancy in the United States was say about 80. So for 20, let's make it a nice easy number. From 20 to 80, it's about 60 years of life. So you're going to spend 60 years or 55 years or maybe even more than 60, depends how good you listen to your parents, because if you listen to your parents, you're obeying your parents, you're probably living longer, right? That's what the Bible teaches us. You're going to live with the person for about 60, 70 years. That's every day. You're going to have to, wake up in the morning, go to sleep with them. You're going to have to, go to church, participate in different events, in different ministries. So it's an important decision. I think, number one, the most important decision is, salvation, become a member of the church. And then right after that, it's your family. It's our families, because it has the most influence and effect in our lives. So choosing your life, your partner in life is a really important decision that you're going to make in your life. And there are not many rules in Bible or New Testament that we learn about how to choose your partner or what's the biblical way to do it. But there is one rule. And Apostle Paul writes about it in 2 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 14. And it says that, do not be yoked together with unbelievers. For what do righteousness and wickedness have in common? Or what fellowship can light have with darkness? So Apostle Paul teaches us that's the only thing that we find. Christians should only marry Christians. So when boys and girls, when you're getting into relationships, make sure the other person is Christian, because that's what Apostle Paul teaches us. That's not the only thing that we need to remember. When we date somebody or we have a relationship with somebody, we have to make sure they're Christian. If the person tell you that they believe in God, that does not make them a Christian. What does make a person, or what qualifies a person to be a Christian? They're born again. What is born again? How does that look like? So what would you look for? Okay, we need to find a Christian, somebody. Except, how does that look like in practical life? How would you know the person is Christian, or he's born again, or he has accepted Christ? He can tell you that, or she can tell you that, but does that mean that they did accept Christ? What would you look for? Okay, that's a real good point. Anybody else? Their behavior, their appearance will show that. Okay, anything else? You guys need to know this, because I hope what is it? The decision they make, that's good. What maturity? Well, maturity level, yes and no. On the spiritual maturity, yes. There could be just personal development. Some people develop faster, some slower. Boys, what do you guys look for in ladies? I know you guys want them to look good, but there are more to it than just that. So what do you look? What makes a girl a Christian girl? Or how do you determine that she's Christian? Maturity, okay. Anybody else? Okay. My suggestion to you, when you, in the season where you feel like you're ready, when you will be, or you might be right now, I don't know, everybody's time is different. Number one, what would help you to find somebody, a partner that is Christian, look at church, in your church or neighboring churches. That probably most likely, does not necessarily mean that they are Christian, but more likely they are. If sometimes people go to places that are ungodly places, and they try to find their future husband or wife, most likely they're not going to be Christian. If you're going to be looking. So make sure, first of all, you look in the proper places. If people are involved in ministries, One of the best ways, I know young people go to missionary trips, things like that. You're serving God together, and and somehow you meet somebody, and that's one way, a good way to find somebody who's a Christian, because they're not just saying, I'm Christian, I'm born again. They're doing something. There are some fruits. Very basic way to show is the fruits of the Spirit, right? If the people show love, kindness, joy, peace, self-control, and all these things, if you see that in the person, that should show that they are true Christian. So that's something really important for so again, do not be yoked together with unbelievers. What do you guys think? How early can you pray for your husband or your wife? What's the earliest? Or it's never too early. That's right. Let me ask you a different question. How early can you think about marriage? Why am I asking? Well, it depends on your personal maturity. But I think my daughter, my youngest daughter, she's a special, unique little girl, and she was 5. She wasn't even 6 at the time. She was in kindergarten. And she already asked some boy to marry her. Probably a little too early, but she did. It's a true story. And poor guy, there was her and somebody else. They were, over a year when they were going to the same class, arguing who's going to marry that little guy. That kid did not want to be part of any of that. But, they decided, those 2 girls, they want to marry him. And, I probably a little too early, but something that, if you're ready or not, something that you all can do. And it's more on a serious note, is pray for your husband or your wife. My wife told me that she was praying since she was 12 for her husband. She's like, I really wanted to be blessed with a good husband, and she was praying for her future husband. And so I didn't even know that someone was praying for me, but she was praying for me for a long time. And God was guiding me, through my life, so I can be a good husband for her. I want to tell you a secret. I don't know what you guys, look for, and a lot of times girls can kind of have an idea what kind of husbands they want. Boys, they kind of, have plans and what kind of girls they will be looking for and things like that. Let me tell you, you guys have no idea who would be the best husband or wife for you guys. You have no idea. After you get married, you start living together. Then you discover what would be the best second half for you. There is no way you can know this just from hanging out, having some kind of relationship with someone. And I learned that, through life. The longer you live, the more you realize how much, God knew. I was like, oh my goodness, it's so important to know this or that about your husband or wife. I had no idea. But I thank God that God knew who I needed in my life to be successful, to grow spiritually, to develop as a person, develop my character. So just pray. Ask God, and don't give God okay, God, I want this kind of girl with this kind of, career and be involved in this kind of ministry or church. Let God figure this out. Just pray, God, guide me so I can meet somebody who's going to, help me first grow spiritually, grow as a person, and, so we can support one another and get through life together in the best way as possible. Let God decide that. Okay, that's a very common question. I would say that as long as you pray about it and trust God, when you meet the person, there are 3 things that are necessary for. There's no biblical way to explain this. And I personally don't agree with people who go to prophets and they say, hey, can we pray and God will. Is that a sin or a bad thing? I don't think it's a bad thing, but it's kind of forcing God to make a choice for you. But we know that God gave every single one of you a choice or free will, and God will bless your choice. But there are 3 things that you need to remember when you're choosing a person. First, you have to spiritually connect. you have to be able to serve spiritually. So when you're in a relationship, you have to be able to openly talk about biblical things, read scripture, pray together. So if you connect on that level, okay, step one, you're good. You're Christians, you're serving God. Number two, you have to be able to be friends. You have to be able to spend time together, to become best friends. Because you're going to spend all your life together, and if you cannot get along with the person or your personalities don't match, you're going to struggle. If you see that you don't match on a personal level, you might not be the one. If you feel uncomfortable, I think another thing, if you decide to go somewhere with that person, and you feel first, sometimes young people, they don't want to go public, so they'll kind of stay away from people. But eventually, when you're ready to go forward, but one of the or both of them, you're ashamed of the other person. You're like, oh, I don't want people to see me with them, or like what they're gonna say. Like you don't feel comfortable. That might not be the one. You have to feel comfortable. That like you have to actually, I don't want to say proud, but you have to be confident that you made a good choice, or you're making a good choice, or you're about to make the good choice. And the third, I would want to say that you have to be physically attracted to one another. Besides just being friends, you have to like. Boys are more. God created us more visual, so we have to like our physical appearances as well. God created us. I know it's not a very popular subject, especially when I was younger. Nobody would talk about. God created us to physically be attracted to one another. And Bible more than one says that this woman was very beautiful, or things like that. There's more than once in the Bible. It's actually, I don't know exact number, but there's quite a few times that Bible says this. Why, like, if that doesn't matter, why does Bible say that, right? So there is something with the physical, how physically attracted two people to one another, because it does have some influence on your marriage and your life. Okay. So pray for your husbands and your wives and trust God, but it's on the end of the day, it's your decision. And if you're making your decision based on biblical principle, you're praying about it, you're trusting God. When you are in relationship, when you having a biblical relationship, when you spend time, worshiping God, reading scripture, praying, your friends, you're physically attracted to one another, and make that decision and move forward, and God will bless. And Psalms 37:5 says, commit your ways to the Lord. Just serve God. I think sometimes people try so hard to find the other person. And sometimes it's not happening. Sometimes people don't try at all. And they kind of end up left on the side. So just trust God, commit your ways to the Lord, serve God, and that will work out. God will take care of it if you're going to be faithful to Him. So, okay, well, after you found a partner and you spend a lot of money on your wedding, what happens next? I know a lot of times, sadly, not everyone, but a lot of times what young people do when they, decide to get married, they, in the process of getting married, they always plan to the wedding day. It's all about wedding day, right? You spend a lot of money on the day, you plan your honeymoon and all these things. But this is just one day or a couple of weeks and that's it. And a lot of young people don't plan what's next. They don't think about what's next. But what's next is way more important than the wedding day. Wedding day is just one day, right? And it's good. There's nothing wrong with having a good wedding day, to enjoy your wedding day, to have it nice and beautiful. There's nothing wrong with that. But there are more after that. Wedding day is just the beginning. It's just one day. And, you probably barely remember anything. Good thing we have videos and pictures, because I personally, if there will be no video and pictures, I will probably not remember much. There's so much stress, so much going on. You're just trying to survive, to the end of the day. But what happens after wedding day? That's what makes a lot of difference what kind of family you're going to be. And a lot of times, young people don't think about it, and they have some struggles. They have some struggles, and some people who, they fail. And a lot of marriages, according to psychologists, statistics, counselors, they say that marriage is most likely to fail in first 3.5 years. If they survive 3.5 years, they're more likely to survive and last for a long time. Bible teaches that, and Jesus said in Mark chapter 10. Let me find that. Verse 6 through 8. But at the beginning of creation, God made them male and female. For this reason, a man will leave his father and mother and be united to his wife, and two will become one flesh. So they are no longer two, but one flesh. So that's what Jesus said. So after marriage, there's something unique and special happens that maybe we can never explain, but in the spiritual world, the two people become one flesh. And what does that mean? Two are made one. Two become one. What does that even mean? That means that, as we know, that we are made of three different components. Is one is spirit, soul, and body. So when two people get married and love, and when we go to weddings, and I haven't been to many American weddings, but in our Slavic weddings, they talk about love. They ask the couples, are you getting married because you love someone, because you love them? They say yes, or through love, however the minister asked. So love is the gel or the glue that holds everything together. Love is not something, it's not just a feeling, because feelings, any kind of feelings, sometimes they're stronger, sometimes there's less feelings, sometimes they pass by, sometimes you get angry. So when a husband and wife, or one of them get angry, is there no love anymore? So love is it's also made out of three components. So spiritually being able to spend time together, reading the Bible, praying, worshiping God. That's one part. We spiritually have to be able to bond together and understand biblically that we are one. And then there's our soul, that's our feelings. Like I said, sometimes the feelings are there. Sometimes you just have to, you just have to understand. This is your wife, this is your husband, and I am called, or I am asked to love her or him just the way they are. And at the weddings, they say that, they say vows, and they say that I'll be with you through worse and better and worse, and through sickness and through difficult times. And that's when it is important to have that love, the true love, the full love. And there's also the physical attraction that people have, which is part how our how God created us. And as I was saying, we are created to have physical attraction to one another, and physical intimacy or sexual relationship before marriage, according to Bible, is a sin. And once you get married, it's a gift that God gave to people, but it only has to be within marriage, between one man and one woman. So something that we have to remember, because that has an effect on our marriage. So when we are in relationship, before we get married, we're building this foundation, what kind of relationship we'll have, what kind of marriage we'll have in the future, after the wedding. So if it's built in a pure and holy and biblical, the way Bible teaches, God will bless that marriage, and your relationship will just grow stronger and, evolve, and you will just become better friends. You will grow spiritually. You will become closer physically, if it's built on a proper foundation. That's why a lot of times ministers, pastors say, hey, you have to be pure. You have to control yourself. You have to behave. before you get married. My mom always would say, for some reason, young people, they want to do all these things before they get married. And after get married, they stop, which it should be opposite. You keep yourself whole, pure, and clean. And after you get married, God will bless you, and this permitted, and it's going to be a beautiful gift that God will give you and will be a blessing for you instead of a curse. Also, I want to mention that in true Christian marriage, husband dominion or husband ruling, or Bible doesn't teach husband being like a commander in a marriage. I know that right now, there is really popular to talk about equality, that woman is not lesser than a man, and it's all true. Bible does not teach us that the wife is lesser than a husband. But Bible does, and Apostle Paul in Ephesians chapter 5 speaks about this. Bible does teach us that God, or let me just read chapter 5, 22 and 24. Wives, submit yourselves to your husbands, and you as you do that to the Lord. For the husband is the head of the wife, as Christ is the head of the church, his body, of which he is the Savior. Now, as the church submits to Christ, so also wives should submit to their husbands in everything. Apostle Paul does teach that as husbands submit themselves to Christ, wives need to obey, or husband is the head of husbands are ahead of the family, or wife and children. That's how Apostle Paul describes the relationships within the family. Why? I don't think, so when husband and wife, they get married, they become one, right? Can you equalize something that is already one? So in order to make it equal, we have to probably break it apart, and then maybe you can say which one's equal or more or less. So Bible teaches that husband and the wife become one flesh. Because they are one flesh, they cannot be equal because they're already one. But God created man and a woman, or in a family, husband and wife, with specific roles. Husband's role is to lead, to love, and I know Apostle Paul specifically in Ephesians, in the same chapter 5, verse 33, he says, husbands, love your wives. Men, or us, husbands, sometimes not all, there are different personalities and different men, but we sometimes don't like to express our emotions. We look at it as a weakness. But for ladies, it is important to feel loved. They want to feel loved. They want to know that the husband cares for them, that the husband is leading them, that he loves them, that he is willing to sacrifice things for them, for the children. So they want to hear that. They want to see that. So it's really important for us, for you guys. And usually guys do that much better when they date or they're in relationship before marriage. Once they get married, they kind of starting to shift away. They're starting to, go after their own plans. So Apostle Paul reminds husbands to love their wives. But on the other hand, wife's role is to help, just like God created Eve to help Adam. And I want to say that, ladies, you have a lot of capacity. You are very talented. God created you. I was thinking, if there would be if Bible would not teach that husbands are heads of the family, or wives had to submit to husbands, that ladies will probably take over. They're very capable. They're very talented. But when I was reading in chapter 3 in Genesis, after Eve and Adam sinned, it says that the punishment for woman would be that your desire will be after your husband, but the husband will, let's try it, I think it's chapter, let's read exactly what it says. I'm going to try to find it. a little quick. To the woman he said, verse 16, I will greatly multiply your pain in childbirth. In the pain you will bring forth children. Yet your desire will be for your husband, and he will rule over you. So a lot of times people they translated the word desire for your husband in different way. And I was listening to a biblical scholar, and he was explaining what Bible trying to show in there that the woman's gonna desire to lead their husbands, to be in charge, but the husband will lead you, just like it says. So it's for, especially right now, we can see in our modern culture the woman really stepping forward, right? And it's not always a bad thing actually, but they're stepping forward, they're leading, they're very capable. But appropriately in the Christian family, husband is the one who's head of the family, and he's gonna answer to God when the time will come, and he'll answer for his wife and his children. Because of that, wives have to submit to their husbands, kids have to obey their parents, so that subordination will be according to Bible between Christ, husband, wife, and children. And in Ephesians chapter 5 and verse 33, it says that wives, respect your husbands. Ladies, they are good at expressing emotions and loving, showing love and things like that. But for some reason, it's a little harder for them to be respectful. Guys, it's more natural for them. And it's nothing worse than, for husbands when you standing with other guys or men, and the wife comes and she's being disrespectful, or she's like, okay, the time to go, whatever, she treats you like, a child or whatever, whatever. There's different situations. It's very sensitive for husbands. So ladies, that's something that I encourage you to remember and, keep in mind. And Apostle Paul, he understood that, and he was encouraging ladies to be respectful to their husbands. Before we go to the next slide, I just want to say that, like I said, ladies, you are very capable. And when you're going to get married, okay, let me finish before I forget my time. Help your husbands to become better men. And a lot of times, men are prideful. A lot of times, I don't want to say in a negative way. They just, we are leaders and we are, heads of the family. But you can help them to become better dads, better husbands, without them really realizing that. You're very capable, you can do it. So may God help you and bless you, just as long as you're not doing it, like forcing it on the husband. But you are there to help him to become a better person. So just because Apostle Paul says that you are a helper or you have to submit yourself to your husband, that doesn't mean that you only have to do what he tells you all the time. Or you only just follow your husband. You still have a choice, and you can bring a lot good to a table in the family and make the family better. Okay, go ahead. Mm-hmm. 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 No, they do have to submit or obey both parents. What I would say this pretty simple. If the husband, say you marry a Christian husband, but he becomes unchristian, or he goes away from God, right? Then the woman or mom is responsible for raising her kids. And if she sees that whatever husband wants or his views are unbiblical, in that whatever unbiblical sense, she has the authority to step over the authority of husband. If it's about biblical teachings. If it's just about daily life, she still has to obey her husband in normal daily, decisions that we all make. So Bible does not exclude that, in every, just if it's against the Bible, then she has the authority. And I know that Bible teaches us that men, and we have to remember, our families are churches. Guys, you're gonna one day have a family, you're gonna have kids, and we're gonna talk about this right now. You're gonna become pastors of your family. You're gonna be responsible to raise your children, to help your wife grow spiritually, to develop, become as strong spiritual adults. That's what you're responsible for. Sometimes if the husbands are not capable or choose not to do it, then moms would step in, then they should. Moms should help their husbands in say, to build their family church. But husbands are the ones, or men are the ones who are responsible, who's going to answer for their church. Just like a pastor will answer for his church, so our pastor will answer for our church in general. He's accountable for it in front of God. We know this popular saying in Joshua. He said, as for me and my family, we will serve the Lord. When Joshua met with all the Israelites and the leaders, he made this. He said this to all the Israelites, and as far as I know, and kind of reading forward, I don't know if his family was able to do that. It's not an easy task. Just like right now in the modern society that we live in, it's not easy to raise good, biblical, godly families. But we still have to try. We still have to invest our time and build that family altar. We have to read Bible together. And my suggestion, when you guys will be in relationships, start doing that right away. Young people are really fast, and I'm not talking about you guys, but in general, in the world, they're really fast to jump into a physical relationship, and let's say even Christians, to kind of move forward with this, our feelings, right? Our feelings towards each other is growing, but they're really slow and starting to pray together. Go to church, say, hey, let's go worship God together. Sing, go to some kind of Bible school maybe. Say, before we're getting married, or take some Christian courses that will develop your skills or teachings for you. So we are really slow with that. But that's something there's no limits. You don't have to be married to do those kind of things. You can start. And if you're going to start, I promise you, when you're going to get married, you're going to just keep growing it. It's going to get better and better. So like I mentioned, dads are the priest of the family. They need to lead the family. If dad is not available, moms should take over and do that. The last subject that we're going to talk about is children. So I know for a lot of us, we think kids is little cute things, we want to hold them, special ladies, like we want to hold them, they're so cute and all adorable and all these things. That goes, once you have your own, that's going to go by really fast, especially if the little cute thing doesn't want to sleep at night. And it's like 1 o'clock and then 2 o'clock. Brother Anton will probably can tell you more about this. 3 o'clock in the morning, and you're like, honey, you want to get up or should I get up? I mean, I didn't even sleep yet. I have to go work. Or sometimes, there's an accident and you have to change the diaper and you don't even know where to start. Not as cute. It's not as fun, but it's part of life. We all, a lot of families go through it. And Bible teaches that children are the heritage of the Lord, and the fruit of the womb is His reward. So kids are a blessing, and they are gifts from God. It's not easy. Even the best kids they are humans. They require a lot of attention, a lot of effort. The older they get, the more difficult it gets because they becoming a person. They want to make their choices, and experience what it's really important for us to guide them, to teach them, to help them to make good choices, so eventually they can go on their own when they're going to get old enough and be a good Christians, be a good people, and start making their own families. So how many kids should Christian family have? So what is so our average, what is it, 7? So 5 kids? So good Christian family is 5 kids, right? If you go by our average, about 5, 6. How many? 7? 12? I mean, it does say multiply, so I'm guessing it has to be at least 2, 3 kids. So yes, first of all, that's one of something that you have to remember. Once you're going to get married, make sure you and the husband are on the same page about kids, just say kids situation. That's something that it's important before you get married. You guys need to talk about this. And make sure you agree. I just want to make this clear that abortions are prohibited in Christian families, or Bible teaches us that that's a murder. So as soon as you know the child is alive, not, I know they arguing when is the baby actually a human. We believe that according to Bible, as soon as you know the child is in the mother's womb, it's alive, it's a human, and we cannot stop its life because it's a murder. So as Christian family, something that we all need to remember, we should not be any part of this kind of activity, let's say. I know there's a lot of argument right now. They're going to go, Supreme Court is going to make some decisions. As in our church, and I also believe that there is a murder to abort a child. It's a sin. And 1 Timothy chapter 5, verse 8, it says, "But if any provide not for his own, and especially for those of his own house, he had denied the faith, and worse than an infidel." So when we choose to have kids, and we do have kids, we have to provide for them. We have to take care of them. That's something that we have to remember. It's not just those little cute things and you just hold them in your hands and give it away to somebody. You have to provide for them when they're little, when they're going to get older. You have to, first of all, raise them in faith. You have to, help them to find Christ. A lot of times, we as parents want to verbally teach our kids how to, live and how to find Christ, how to live Christian life. But the best way, we like it or not, is our lives. They see those even little kids, a couple of years old, they see you every day. And we should set an example on daily life. And if we'll set a good example, most likely our kids will be faithful. They will serve the Lord. They become good people. So not just verbally, but just also with our daily life, we have to show an example to our kids. So we are responsible raising our kids, to love God, pray, read, honor parents, be good, people, be respectful, teach them manners. Parents are responsible for that. A lot of times, you want Sunday school to do things like that. You want public schools to do that. They help out. Maybe public school will responsible to teach your kids education, but just a normal, basic life, everyday life decisions, manners, how to make good choices. That's what as parents, we are, or when you go into be parents, you're going to be responsible for. Also, as I was talking about last time when I was having a lesson, all those children, they have some purpose. God has a purpose for them. God's calling them to do something, and parents are responsible to help them and assist them with that. That's something that when you're going to become parents, you should help them and know your kids. Who knows them, or who knows you guys better than your parents? I think your parents will probably really know you. You know yourself and your parents. Maybe some of your friends will know you, but I still believe that parents, mom and dad, should know their kids the best, and they are the ones who are most qualified to help them how to succeed in spiritual and professional life and as a person. And Proverbs 22:6, it says, "Train up a child in the way he should go. Even when he is old, he will not depart from it." And if you notice, it says, "in the way he should go." It doesn't say the way God planned for him. So every person has their ways. We're all different. Our personalities are different, and God has a different purpose. So as parents, one of the mistakes that parents make, they want their kids to be a certain way, the way they want them to be. But like I pray always, God, I do want my kids to be Christian, and I do have some ideas how, what kind of life they should have, what kind of choices they should make. But you know better than me. So end of the day, I'm asking you to help them to become who you want them to be, not who I want them to be. And I hope what I want them to be line up or comes close to God's plan, but that's not necessarily true all the time. So that's something there keep in mind, that that God might have bigger plans and different plans than what we as parents have, and that is okay. Discipline with love. I don't know how much you guys been part of disciplining. I was a little bit more involved with disciplining. The further or back in the days, parents were, more, especially in Ukraine, that was not a big deal. We know that in Proverbs, it says that Proverbs 13:24, "He who spares the rod hates his son, but he who loves him is careful to discipline him." But I just want to say that physical discipline should be the last resort. Even I think there's more than one way to help your child to overcome their hurdles or the challenges that they're going through. And physical discipline should be a last thing that you might want to do. And when you're going to do it, I try to practice that. Tell them, because I love you and because I warned you and because I gave you, more than one warning, and you choose not to stop doing this or that or behave a certain way, you are forcing me to do something that I don't want you to do. But because I care for you, then, explain your child that you love them, and because you love them, there is a discipline. When it's, I think one of the worst ways to do it, when the parent gets really angry. They just out of control sometimes. And that unfortunately happens, and they start disciplining the child. And sometimes the child don't even understand why they're being disciplined. They don't know what's going on, in a sense. And the parent just, gets out of control. I hope that God will give all of you wisdom, and I hope none of you were part of that kind of, disciplining. And if Evan did happen, please, pray for forgiveness. First, I hope God will help you to overcome this and forgive your parents. Nobody's perfect. Parents are not perfect either. Parents, mom and dads, they are humans. They have a sinful nature, and they're gonna make some mistakes. So just learn from it. Try not to do it yourself. But as I mentioned, children do watch you, parents, a lot, and they learn from parents way more by observing them than what parents tell them. I notice, and I tell my wife Irina a lot of times, and she doesn't even realize that she does a lot of things like her mom did it. Especially the more we live together, the older we get, she does, a lot of things like, in the kitchen, or the way she would say something. I was like, oh my goodness, like back in the days when I used to visit and stuff like that, your mom would say exactly the same thing or do it exactly the same. And she's like, really? She's like, I didn't even notice that. But parents has a huge effect on children in positive way, in the good things. And there are some bad things sometimes too that we inherit from our parents. And, unfortunately, that happens too. So when you're going to be parents, remember the kids always see everything. And a lot of times they don't even realize. And most of the time parents don't notice that. But it does happen. And we have to be careful. And we have to be a light to them. We have to show Christ in everyday life. So just keep peace, be honest, teach your kids how to forgive. And I just want to say that kids are very sensitive, very gentle. And pray, when you guys going to get married, start having kids, start praying for them right away. And invest into them right away. A lot of times parents, they think, well, they're too small, they're 1 or 2 years old. They don't understand anything. They just a little boy or girl that runs around. I want to say that when kids are 6 or 7 years old and you starting to, train them or work on them, it might be sometimes too late. Even seems like, boy, it's 6 or 7. A lot of things they learn, and it seems like the farther we go, the earlier they learn stuff. Right now, they go to school. I went to school when I was, I think, 7 or 6. Right now, kids go to preschool when they are 3 years old. So they're getting trained, all these things, and they go, especially if it's not a Christian school, they're going to be, receiving a lot of information that I suggest that you make sure they receive proper information. And psychologists say that first information, it doesn't matter good or bad, it doesn't matter who input the information about whatever subject or topic it is always stays the most and is the hardest to get rid of from people's mind. So you're going to be the ones who's going to have an opportunity to put the good first information, biblical teachings about everything in life. And hopefully that's what's going to stay in their lives. And, they're going to be blessed and they're going to become wonderful people just like you guys are growing and developing. And, next thing you know, you guys will have, you will see. It seems like it's who knows when it will happen. And, you have your families and, you'll be raising your kids. Time flies by. We just seems like started the class not too long ago. It's been, and Brother Anton said it's almost over, right? We have 2 more lessons and a couple more activities, and that's it. You will get baptized. So times fly by. So I just gave you basic information. I don't know if you have more questions about family life and church. If you guys have questions how our church sees a certain topic about family or questions or concerns that you have about family and family life, raising kids, whatever, you guys can ask me. Go ahead. You mean like Christian, but like say Baptist? Okay, really good question. I should have mentioned that. I would say if it's, let's say, Baptist, there are Baptists are really close to Pentecostal. There's a little difference. Well, I don't know if you can call it little, but they're still the closest. And the other side is charismatic. That's the other side. So I guess if you go on those two, it's not a matter of salvation. It's just a matter of your being having comfortable relationship. Because when you're dating or you're in relationship, I don't know if dating is the proper word to call it in our church, but we'll just say, we don't like the word. We'll just say you're in relationship before you're going to get married. You're not going to really care about, those things don't come up. Why? Because they call it, this is, it's not even a honeymoon state. This rosy, everything's perfect. Everything's good. But when you're going to get married, things will slow down. That's when differences start to come out. And I know personally, when I was younger, I didn't understand it, but I was part of some arguments. The husband and wife, and they're Baptist and Pentecostal, will sit there in, let's say, our house, and they would argue, like some serious arguments about, they know, but it still comes back. So it's better to choose somebody who's similar, at least similar. Like I said, Baptist or charismatics probably are the two closest to our Pentecostal, theology. Maybe Catholic or other non-denominational, maybe. By my suggestion, try to find somebody closer. Life is very complicated. And I didn't talk about this, but what are questions that young people ask? Can I marry? Is it okay to marry American or different, a Spanish person or whatever? Different black person, Asian person. It's not a sin. It's not a sin. But my advice to you, Bible teaches it has to be a Christian. That's the only thing that requires us. But if that person has so much different background than you, comes from different culture, it's gonna harder for you to become one, right? When people get married, Bible, it says pretty easy, well, the two become one. In reality, it's a process. And I'm married for 15 years, it's still a process. And I believe actually in marriage, if you have a husband and a wife think that that's it, they made it, right? That's it, the best point, and they don't have to do anything, right? Their relationship is really good, that's it, they accomplished it. I think they're already going backwards. You can always improve and be better. So if you have, let's say you're from different, you're not Slavic, you're from whatever culture, you have to overcome so much challenges. The person doesn't probably speak Ukrainian, and your mom only speaks Ukrainian. This whole challenge, and then you have to deal with your parents, and then, all this. It just makes much more complicated and difficult consequences that you have to deal with. And it's harder to succeed. But it's not a sin, it's just difficult. Any other? Yeah, so that's all I have from me, and there's no more questions. You guys asked some good questions, and I hope that in our church we'll have soon premarital classes where they will go over more in details. I just tried to overview just the very basic teachings on marriage and why is it important. So I'm done. We'll post all the information online, or Anton will post it. I would like to pray, and then I think the last slide is the Bible verse that you guys gonna have to memorize. So it's Genesis 2:24. Therefore, a man shall leave his father and his mother and hold fast to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. God designed the family is not something that people created or cultures created. It was created by God. It's the way of life. So that's how it works. There's nothing wrong with wanting to get married. That's normal, and that's what God wants us to do, unless we call to be single. There's no exception. Okay, before we're going to pray, I know that we are planning for kids camp, and we are in need of boy leaders. We need like 5 of them. Actually, boys, if you're interested in spending time with some younger boys, you feel like you can lead them, that's a good opportunity. Let me know. We still need, I think, 5 boys, 5 men. So maybe it's your opportunity to hang out with some young guys. Okay, so I'm going to pray for you guys. I want to pray for God to bless all of you with wonderful families, to find that second half, and then eventually when you're going to get married, to raise your kids, godly, successful, successful in life, successful in careers, and just overall. So let's pray, and you guys can go after them. Jesus, thank you, Lord, again for being our God, for dying for us on the cross, Lord. And today we had this important topic that we went over, Lord. The way you created us right in the beginning to have families, Lord. And there's many young people in this room, Lord, and they still in the path, they still in the season when they're going to be looking, or they are just getting involved in relationships, Lord. So I'm praying, Lord, for you to bless them, to help them to make good choices in their life, help them to be blessed with the other person so they can walk the walk of life together, so they can grow together, become better spiritually, Lord, stronger. They can have good relationships, and they can worship and serve you together, their families. When you're going to bless them with children, Lord, I'm praying that you can give wisdom to every single one of them to be good dads, good moms, Lord, so that the kids can grow and they can be wonderful, blessed young people, Lord, so they can worship you and live for you, Lord, and they can fulfill your purpose, Lord. Life is not easy, and right now we live at the times where families are truly attacked, but devil's attacking marriages and original, how you created union and marriage. Devil's attacking children and teaching them or giving them all this false information, unbiblical information. But help us, Christians, people who follow you, Lord, to be that light, to raise our families the way you want us to raise them, and to show the world what